Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. The frequency the wind howled across the barren landscape, whipping snow against the windows of Outpost 72. The decommissioned weather station creaked and moaned under the assault of the Arctic storm. I checked my watch, 3:17 a.m., another sleepless night in this godforsaken place. My name is Marcus Webb, meteorological researcher. At least, that's what my ID badge says. In reality, I'm more of a glorified caretaker, sent here to document the final days of this Cold War relic before the government decides what to do with it. 6 months, they said. 6 months of isolation, save for monthly supply drops, for months down, 2 to go. I pulled my thermal sweater tighter and made my way through the dimly lit corridor toward the main monitoring room. My footsteps echoed against metal floors worn smooth by decades of use. The station had been officially decommissioned 3 years ago, its sophisticated weather monitoring equipment rendered obsolete by satellites and automated systems. But something about Outpost 72 had caught someone's attention in Washington, something worth sending a researcher to document. The monitoring room was a circular chamber dominated by banks of equipment, analog dials, switches, and readouts that belonged in a museum. A massive radar dish control system took up the north wall, its displays dark and silent, or at least they should have been. I stopped in the doorway, the hair on my arms standing on end. A soft, rhythmic beeping emanated from the radar console. The main display screen flickered with a faint green glow, a single dot pulsing in its center. Impossible, I muttered, approaching the console. This equipment had been powered down when the station was decommissioned. I'd verified it myself when I arrived. The backup generators were only supposed to power essential systems, heating, basic lighting, and communications. Not the weather monitoring equipment. I flipped the master switch to off. The beeping continued, the green dot still pulsing. I traced the power cables, finding them disconnected from their source, yet somehow the system remained active. Equipment malfunction, I said aloud, my voice sounding thin in the empty room. Just document it and move on. I took out my journal and made a note of the anomaly, including the time and date. This wasn't the first strange occurrence I'd documented at Outpost 72. Equipment that turned itself on was becoming a regular feature of my reports. 3 weeks ago, it was the atmospheric pressure sensors. Then the anemometers on the roof began spinning without wind. Last week, the seismic monitors started registering phantom tremors. Each time, I'd power them down, only to find them operational again hours later. I'd reported these incidents during my weekly check-ins, but my supervisors seemed unconcerned. Document and continue monitoring was the standard response. No explanation, no support. The beeping from the radar suddenly increased in tempo. The green dot pulsed faster, growing brighter. I leaned closer, studying the coordinates. According to the readout, whatever the radar was detecting was directly overhead, about 30,000 feet up and descending. "That's not possible," I whispered. I moved to the windows, pulling back the heavy thermal curtains. The storm raged outside, snow swirling in the floodlights that illuminated the perimeter. The sky was a solid mass of clouds and darkness. Nothing visible but the endless white of the Arctic night. The beeping became more insistent. I returned to the console, watching as the altitude readout ticked downward, 25,000 feet, 20,000, 15,000. My heart rate accelerated with the beeping. Something was wrong, very wrong. I reached for the satellite phone, ready to make an emergency call, when the beeping suddenly stopped. The screen went dark. Silence filled the room, broken only by my ragged breathing. I stood frozen, waiting for anything to happen. After several minutes of nothing, I exhaled slowly. "You're losing it, Webb," I muttered. 4 months of isolation and you're jumping at shadows. I made another note in my journal and decided to make a cup of coffee. As I turned to leave, a new sound filled the room, a low, rhythmic hum emanating from the speakers of the communications system. It started softly, almost imperceptible, then gradually increased in volume. I approached the communications console, examining the dials and readouts. According to the equipment, we were receiving a transmission on a frequency that should have been dead, an old emergency channel used during the Cold War. The humming modulated, shifting into a pattern that almost resembled speech. I adjusted the frequency, trying to clean up the signal. Static crackled through the speakers, and then, unmistakably, a voice. Return signal confirm. The words were fragmented, distorted by static and distance. I grabbed the microphone, hesitated, then keyed the transmit button. "This is Outpost 72, who am I speaking with?" More static then. "Found you coming, prepare." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the Arctic cold. "Identify yourself." Over, the static cleared momentarily and a voice came through with startling clarity. "We never left, Marcus." My blood froze. I hadn't identified myself. No one should know my name on this frequency. Who is this? I demanded, my voice cracking. The only response was a high-pitched tone that made my teeth ache. It lasted for several seconds before the communication system went dead, along with every light in the station. Total darkness enveloped me. The emergency generators should have kicked in immediately, but the seconds stretched into minutes with no response. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam cutting weakly through the darkness as I made my way to the generator room. The main corridor seemed longer in the dark, my flashlight illuminating only a few feet ahead. The temperature was already dropping. Without power, the heating system would fail, and in the Arctic winter, that meant death within hours. I reached the generator room and found the problem immediately. The automatic transfer switch had been manually disabled. Someone had deliberately prevented the backup power from engaging. "That's impossible," I whispered, my breath visible in the beam of my flashlight. I was alone at the station. The next supply drop wasn't for 2 weeks. No one could have accessed this room but me. I reset the switch and the generators rumbled to life. Lights flickered on throughout the station, and the heating system began its laborious process of warming the frigid air. Back in the monitoring room, I found all systems operational again, but different. Every screen displayed the same message, repeating across monitors that shouldn't have been capable of displaying text. "Welcome back, MARCUS, we've been waiting." My hands trembled as I approached the main console. I hadn't programmed this. I couldn't have programmed this. The systems were analog, designed decades before digital displays. The radar screen flickered to life again, showing not one but dozens of objects now, all converging on the station from various altitudes and directions. The satellite phone rang, startling me so badly I nearly fell. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Outpost 72, this is Webb, Marcus." The voice was familiar. "Dr. Harlow, my direct supervisor. We've detected unusual activity at your location. Are you experiencing any equipment malfunctions?" I laughed, a sound bordering on hysteria. "You could say that. Every system that should be decommissioned is active. The radar is showing multiple objects converging on the station. And there are messages appearing on screens that shouldn't be capable of displaying text." A long pause followed. "What do the messages say?" "Welcome back, Marcus. We've been waiting." "What the hell is going on, Harlow?" Another pause. "Listen carefully, Marcus. You need to get to the secure storage room on sublevel B. There's a red case marked Protocol Omega. Inside you'll find instructions and equipment. Follow them exactly. Sublevel B." There is no sublevel B in the station schematics. There's a lot about Outpost 72 that isn't in the official documentation. In the supply closet off the main corridor, behind the shelving unit, you'll find a keypad. The code is 7294. Now hurry, we don't have much time. Time for what? What's happening? But the line went dead. My mind raced as I made my way to the supply closet. I'd inventoried this room my first week here. There was no hidden door, no keypad. But as I pushed aside the heavy metal shelving unit, I found a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest. A small panel, previously hidden by the shelving, contained a numeric keypad. I entered 7294, and a hydraulic hiss followed as a section of the floor slid away, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. My flashlight beam trembled as I made my way down the metal stairs. The air grew colder, staler with each step. At the bottom, I found a heavy door with "SUBLEVELB authorized personnel only" stenciled across it in faded red letters. The door wasn't locked. It swung open with a groan of protest, revealing a space that defied all logic. Sublevel B wasn't just a room, it was an entire complex, easily 3 times the size of the surface station. Row upon row of equipment hummed with activity, lights blinking in complex patterns across consoles I didn't recognize. This technology wasn't decades old. Some of it looked more advanced than anything I'd seen before. In the center of the room stood a single pedestal with a red metal case. Protocol Omega was stamped on its surface. I approached slowly, each step echoing in the cavernous space. The case opened with a click, revealing a single sheet of paper and what looked like a modified radio headset. The instructions were brief. Protocol Omega initiated 1. Dawn headset 2. Tune to frequency 121.5 MHz 3. Listen for authentication sequence 4. Respond with "The winter stars are falling" 5. Await further instructions. Do not remove headset once protocol is initiated. I stared at the instructions, trying to make sense of them. This wasn't standard meteorological research. This wasn't research at all. The entire station shuddered suddenly, dust raining down from the ceiling. Above me, something heavy moved across the surface, the sound reverberating through the structure. With shaking hands, I put on the headset and tuned to the specified frequency. Immediately, a series of tones played in a specific pattern: high, low, high, high, low. They repeated 3 times before silence fell. The winter stars are falling, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. A new voice responded immediately, clinical and precise, authentication accepted. Subject Webb Marcus, clearance, Omega, standby for neural calibration. A high-pitched whine filled my ears, building in intensity until I thought my head would split open. I tried to remove the headset, but my arms wouldn't respond. My body wasn't my own anymore. The pain subsided, replaced by a strange clarity. Memories surfaced, memories that couldn't possibly be mine. I saw Outpost 72 decades ago, bustling with activity. Scientists in lab coats monitoring equipment, military personnel standing guard. I saw the sky open above the station, a tear in reality through which something emerged. Something vast and incomprehensible. I gasped, falling to my knees as the foreign memories continued to flood my consciousness. I wasn't sent here to document a decommissioned weather station. I was sent here because whatever happened at Outpost 72 was happening again. The voice returned, neural calibration complete, memory suppression removed. Welcome back, Dr. Webb. I don't understand, I said, though part of me, some newly awakened part, did understand. You've been here before, Dr. Webb, many times. Each cycle your memories are suppressed and you are returned to document the reemergence. Each cycle you help us contain it. Contain what? Look at your journal, doctor. Really look at it. I pulled out my documentation journal with trembling hands. The pages I'd been filling for months suddenly appeared different. The handwriting was mine, but the content. Pages of complex equations, diagrams of what looked like tears in spacetime, and repeated warnings. It comes through the frequency, don't listen, they are not what they appear to be. Close the door. The final pages contained a single phrase, repeated hundreds of times in increasingly frantic handwriting. I am not alone, I am not alone, I am not alone. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Alarms began to sound throughout the complex. They're here, the voice in the headset said. You know what to do, Dr. Webb. You've done it before, but I didn't know, or I didn't want to remember. I ran back up the stairs to the main level of the station, the headset still firmly in place. The monitoring room was chaos, every system active, alarms blaring, screens flashing warnings. Through the windows I could see the storm had stopped. The sky above the station had opened, there was no other word for it, a vast tear in reality, through which stars that didn't belong to our sky shone down. The radar showed the objects had arrived, surrounding the station in a perfect circle. The satellite phone rang again. Webb, I answered. Marcus, listen carefully. It was Harlow again. The frequency is the key. They use it to open the door, but we can use it to close it too. You need to reverse the polarity on the main transmission array. The equipment in sublevel B will guide you. What are they, Harlow? What's coming through? You know what they are, Marcus. You've met them before. Every 10 years they try to come through, and every 10 years we send you to stop them. Why me? Why can't I remember? Because no one can live with those memories, Marcus. No one should have to. I'm sorry. The line went dead again. I returned to sublevel B, guided by instructions in the headset. My hands moved with practiced efficiency across equipment I shouldn't have known how to operate. Muscle memory from cycles I couldn't consciously recall. As I worked, more memories surfaced. I'd been at Outpost 72 not as a researcher, but as the lead scientist on Project Threshold, a top-secret Cold War experiment into using weather patterns to detect anomalies in spacetime. We'd found one. And we'd opened a door that should have remained closed. They came through that door, entities that existed in dimensions beyond our comprehension. They took forms we could understand, used our own technology to communicate. They promised knowledge, power, advancement beyond our wildest dreams, and they lied. The first team was lost entirely. The second team managed to close the door, but not before the entities had established a foothold of frequency they could use to reach back through, to try again every decade when the cosmic alignment was right. I was part of the third team. We developed Protocol Omega, a way to counter their frequency, to close the door again. But there was a cost. The human mind couldn't process the mathematics needed for the calculations while retaining sanity. The solution was memory suppression, to do the work, then forget. I had been coming back to Outpost 72 every 10 years for 5 decades, my memories wiped clean each time, living my life in between without knowledge of what waited for me in the Arctic. The voice in the headset guided me through the final calibrations. Transmission ready, awaiting your command, Dr. Webb. Outside, the tear in the sky had grown larger. Through the monitoring systems, I could see shapes moving at its edges, vast geometries that hurt to look at directly. A new sound filled the station, voices calling my name from every speaker, every piece of equipment. Voices that sounded like colleagues I'd worked with, friends I'd known, family members long dead. Marcus, don't do this. We can show you wonders. You don't need to be alone anymore. We can give you back everything you've lost. My finger hovered over the transmission button. Part of me, a weak, lonely part, wanted to listen. "They're lying, Dr. Webb," the voice in the headset said firmly. "They always lie. Remember your notes. Remember what happened to the others." I closed my eyes and pressed the button. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The station shook violently, equipment exploding in showers of sparks. The voices turned to screams, then to static, then to silence. Through the monitoring cameras, I watched the tier in the sky begin to close, the impossible stars winking out one by one. The entities didn't go quietly. The station's structure groaned under assault from forces I couldn't see, but could feel like massive pressure changes, like gravity itself was being manipulated. "Containment at 60%, reported the headset voice. 70%, 80%, a massive crack appeared in the ceiling above me, widening rapidly. I dove under a console as chunks of concrete and steel began to fall. 90%, 95%, the floor beneath me tilted as one side of the station began to collapse. "Containment complete, door closed, well done, Dr. Webb." The headset went silent, the shaking stopped. In the sudden quiet, I could hear the wind howling through the damaged structure of the station. I crawled out from under the console, surveying the destruction around me. Sublevel B was partially collapsed, most of its equipment destroyed. The stairway up was blocked by debris. There was another way out, an emergency exit that led to a tunnel and eventually to the surface, 100 yards from the main station. Another memory I shouldn't have had. I made my way through the tunnel, emerging into the Arctic night. The storm had passed. The sky above was clear, filled with normal, familiar stars. In the distance, Outpost 72 stood partially collapsed, smoke rising from its broken structure. My satellite phone was somehow still functional. I called the emergency extraction number. "This is Webb at Outpost 72. Protocol Omega completed, requesting immediate extraction." "Understood, Dr. Webb." "Helicopter en route, ETA 3 hours, status of the station, compromised, partially collapsed, sublevel B is mostly destroyed, and the entities," I looked up at the normal night sky, "contained for now." "Excellent. Prepare for standard debriefing and memory suppression upon arrival at base." I ended the call and sat in the snow, watching the ruined station. In 3 hours, they would come for me. They would take my memories again, and I would go back to a life I thought was mine, unaware of what waited for me in another decade. But as I sat there, a new thought formed, a dangerous thought. What if I didn't go back? What if I kept my memories this time? The headset lay heavy in my pocket. I pulled it out, examining it. The voice was silent now, but the equipment still functioned. And with it, perhaps, access to frequencies I shouldn't know about. I put the headset back on and turned the dial to a frequency I somehow remembered, 121.6 megahertz, just adjacent to the emergency channel. Static crackled in my ears, then cleared. My voice spoke softly. "I knew you would try this. I left this message for myself. For you. Don't do it, Marcus. Don't keep the memories. Don't try to use what you've learned. They're never truly gone." They're waiting in the frequency, listening, always listening. I removed the headset slowly, my hands shaking. In the distance, I could see lights on the horizon, the extraction team coming for me. For a moment, I considered running, disappearing into the vastness of the Arctic, keeping what I knew. Instead, I closed my eyes and waited for them to arrive, to take away the burden of knowledge once again. Some doors should remain closed, some frequencies should remain silent. But as the helicopter approached, a small doubt lingered. In the static between stations, in the spaces between thoughts, something was still listening, and in 10 years it would call again. The frequency never stays silent forever.